in 10 years, you would imagine you click a button, you see a property in Miami, Dubai, Thailand, click, and you own a property. And it's easy and not expensive to transact. You can transfer the ownership of your home easily, streamlined, no fear of fraud as you move from one city to another, from one state to another, increasing the mobility of the new generation. And I think the new generation deserve this new experience without bureaucracy. And instead of 5 million homes sold in America annually, we would see 20 million.
Welcome to Speak Up. I am your host, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining me today is the founder of Propy, Natalia Karayaneva. Welcome to Speak Up. Natalia is a leading blockchain evolutionary thinker. She's going to take us through what Propy actually is. I have to fully disclose this to everybody. I am a proud advisor to Propy, and so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But you created Propy, Natalia, after becoming frustrated with time-consuming real estate transactions that are often rife with fraud. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, and then tell us what Propy does.
Absolutely. Well,
and welcome to the show, by the way.
Yes, thank you so much.
We need some star power on the show. We finally have some star power. So thank you, Nat, for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and very proud of you having as our advisor as we keep growing here in the United States and we keep learning about all the fraud cases, all the inefficiencies in the real estate market in America as well as globally. It's fascinating to understand that it's inevitable that blockchain and AI will transform this industry. And my background is in real estate development. I've been 15 years, I've been a real estate developer in Europe. And then I'm also a software engineer. So now combining those two passions, understanding that so many billions of dollars, millions of dollars are lost by the American home buyer to fraud, deed fraud, identity fraud in real estate, wire fraud. It's just fascinating that we're living at this tech forward world. And yet when we're buying the most expensive, the most valuable asset in our life, we experience this anxiety, opacity of the transaction. So it's prone to change, and I'm here to tell the story how.
So your team is small, right? How big is the team?
We're 40 people, 20 engineers, and 20 people are in escrow, title, closing, marketing, and sales.
The reason I bring up the fact that the team is small is I'm very, very impressed with what you guys have been able to do in a very short period of time. So I want to get into your management skill set in a second. But before I get there, I want you to tell us the vision for Propy. Let's say it's 2030. Propy is starting to get integrated into the world of real world assets and transactions. Take me through a real estate transaction that Propy is involved with and tell me the benefit there.
Yeah, the benefits and the experiences will be anything that exists today in real estate, but you could potentially drive an analogy in other spaces such as transportation or rentals. So today it's very easy to travel around the world and get Uber or get Airbnb, very easy, even though these are highly regulated markets. So in the same manner, in 10 years, you would imagine you click a button, you see a property in Miami, Dubai, Thailand, click, and you own a property. And it's easy and not expensive to transact. You can transfer the ownership of your home easily, streamlined, no fear of fraud as you move from one city to another, from one state to another, increasing the mobility of the new generation. And I think the new generation deserve this new experience without bureaucracy. And instead of 5 million homes sold in America annually, we would see 20 million. We would see a real estate market that is liquid 24/7. You can buy, exit, hold real estate assets again, anywhere in the world. That's how I imagine the real estate to evolve. Also impacting the very essence of the recording and capitalism in developing countries, because many don't actually have proper systems, and thus we don't invest in those countries. They don't have access to financing. So what we do here in America would greatly impact and become the foundation of capitalism in developing countries as well.
Take me through the psychological implications of that, because our money, our real assets, everything's tied to us psychologically. It's almost like when we go to buy something, Nat, it's like we want it to have a little bit of pain in it, meaning it feels more real. Do you know what I mean? Like if I go through a 2-day closing and I wait for the wire to get transferred and they're handing me documents to sign ad nauseum. Take me through have you thought that through, where somebody says, okay, this seems like it's too good to be true. I'm going to point and click at this the way I would buy a collectible from eBay. React to what I'm saying. Maybe I'm getting too old, Nat. Okay.
No, you're right.
React to what I'm saying.
And we're hearing this often from real estate agents. It's like, no, we need this pain. We need 30 days of anxiety and thinking and uncertainty because maybe we don't deserve this house, or we want to make change and change our mind. And we need to suffer. It's the most valuable asset in the world. And for us, like we've been saving it maybe for a whole life for the down payment. So there is this perception that since it's a very valuable asset, and maybe it shouldn't be that easy to acquire. But my counterpoint, don't worry, there is still enough of worry, of uncertainty, because you have to choose your home. So you still would go to different neighborhoods, open houses, try to feel the space, evaluate whether it's a good investment or not, whether you have the right energy in the house or not. But once you did the assessment of all your options, I think the American homebuyer deserves to know in advance if there are title issues or if there are any risks to own this home. So it's rather to have all the disclosures in advance. And once you decide, click, you own a home. And then if you change your mind in half a year or 1 year, it's easy to liquidate and buy a new asset.
Okay. You've done $4 billion in real estate transactions, right? Including with agents from many big real estate firms. So it is working, right? Companies providing services in a sort of like a tech-driven agent. You're accepting payments through Propy. Take us through how it works. Let's say I'm ready to buy a home. And by the way, where are you most linked up? In Dubai, or what parts of the world are you? And take us through the process of how you would do this.
We're very focused in the U.S. right now, with Florida, Arizona, Colorado as the main markets. Texas, Tennessee, California are upcoming. And the process is very simplified, of course. That's our mission. So we have two parts of the transaction. One, which is the most tech driven, and it's for crypto natives. It's literally would mean that you connect your wallet, click, and you acquire a property if we already have tokenized it. And the other part, that's where we see the most of adoption. It's quite traditional. We have title and escrow license firm, and you would have a purchase agreement signed. Then our AI will read the purchase agreement and will establish a transaction right away. It could be an evening, a weekend, but you have the feeling of that it's going right away into an execution. And then if you're a buyer, you would receive an online payment link right away, again, automatically after our AI and our personnel verifies that the purchase agreement is in place, it's correct. And then you have the transparency of all the steps of the payment, of the closing, of the title report, the title commitment, and all the pieces that we have to do for an ordinary closing, but it's just online and transparent.
I love real estate. I love I just love everything about it. I also love the fact that, like you said, it's the most important asset for most people. And so when I think about this long term, will I be able to own a fraction of something? So meaning there's a huge commercial office building, maybe there's a primary owner, but I want to be able to say that I own a fraction of 30 Rockefeller Center or the Burj Al Arab, or you pick it. Is that part of the future as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think right now the SEC and the alternative institutions of SEC around the world are looking at fractional ownership in real estate on blockchain and how to allow more citizens to invest because obviously it's a security. So if you do a fractional ownership of a property, it's a security. And I always advise all the real estate operators and owners who are getting into tokenization to just follow the SEC rules and do the registration under Reg D or Reg A and so on. So this future will come, but I also see after a number of conversations with the legislators that there is an appetite to actually ease the securities laws for certain assets that are backed by assets like real estate. So the future is coming. And, Robinhood also about a week ago, Vlad was tweeting about how Robinhood will become the place to buy real estate. And I think they mean securities. I think they meant fractional ownership of real estate. Even today, you can participate in this world by buying REITs, public REITs, right? So it's kind of already there, but it will be a beautiful future where the new generation, again, just like they like buying coins and cryptocurrencies, they could also buy $1,000 of this trophy property or of that property. So yeah, totally, I see this as an inevitable future.
So I'm a Bitcoiner, as you know, and I have a stash of Bitcoin that I don't want to sell. But now I see a beautiful property somewhere. Tell me how Propy can help us, and take us through as an example, the transaction that you guys did in Hawaii, where you're creating this loan option for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I like that we have the same interest, real estate and Bitcoin. I do believe that Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value, while Ethereum is the foundational infrastructure for assets being moved on chain, including transactions that involve Bitcoin. And that's the beautiful transaction that we did last month, where a Bitcoin holder was able to bid on a property that is tokenized with their Bitcoin holdings without exiting the position. So what it means is that I see the world where Bitcoin plays a role as this pristine collateral where you can leverage it and enter other asset classes. So imagine in this property particularly, you bid with $250,000 in Bitcoin, and if you win the bid, you get a loan against your Bitcoin automatically on chain without the verifications, there is a KYC process, but there is no like a 30-day of mortgage approval. And then with this loan, you actually acquire a property and you become the owner right away.
So I can keep my Bitcoin, own the asset, sort of the best of both worlds, right? What am I missing?
Yeah, so it's a dual collateral. For now, it's quite a short-term loan, 2 years, but we're looking for partners both from the crypto lending as well as traditional mortgages. We're educating them, but it's dual collateral. So lenders have to accept both Bitcoin and real estate, and thus they have to understand both assets, and that has been a little bit of a challenge.
Okay, makes sense. What's the weakness? What's the thing that you wake up at night and say, okay, I gotta push this? What is that?
I think the scale to get those lenders be comfortable with both assets, because there is a demand. The Bitcoin whales and Bitcoin believers like yourself, they know that the asset will go up in value. They don't want to exit it, but to leverage it, yes, of course. So just take my money. I will pay you interest because I believe that both real estate and Bitcoin will further appreciate. So I think not. We've been in the space for 7 years. So the pace it doesn't worry us anymore. We know that things will happen. We just need to keep educating and talking to lenders for this particular use case and talking to legislators to actually start accepting smart contracts for settlement in America. Yeah.
I want to also bring up the fact that even if a property has been tokenized by Propy, if the new owner wants to sell it through a traditional way, they can do that as well, right? So there's tremendous flexibility with your product offering. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the way we tokenize real estate is we actually establish an LLC or a trust. And then as a title company, we record it in the county. And from that moment, there is a documentation, there is our know-how that we transfer the ownership of the LLC or the trust respectively. And this allows us to kind of detach ownership from the county and just put it entirely on chain. And then if the new owner wants to sell the LLC, of course, it's doable. So there is a great option of this flexibility.
Bring up a piece of bad news for a second and tell us how Propy would handle this. Let's say that there is a transaction that takes place, and for some reason, the person your transaction with actually didn't have the title to the home. You thought they did, but they didn't. They had erroneous paperwork or something like that. Mm-hmm. How would you unwind a transaction like that if there was a situation related to fraud?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we act as a title company, right? So we have to check the title, the counties, all the recordings. That's part of our job. Now, if there is a fraud or identity fraud where AI or there are possibilities that a fraud case would happen. Not that the title doesn't exist, but let's say the buyer is fraudulent. And the way we undo it is that we have to delete to deattach the current NFT, recreate the NFT, and then put it in the paperwork again that this particular LLC is owned by this particular NFT owner, which is the old owner, and we would follow the current rules of the title industry on whether we want to report this fraudster we have to report it to FBI and to all the services and re-record the deed.
I want to take questions from the audience now. We had people, we sent out that you were coming on, and then we get people to come in and ask questions. So we try to make the show interactive. So Scott is asking, what is the advantage of buying a tokenized property?
That's a great question. So tokenized asset, which is, again, we're talking here not about fractional ownership, and thus it's not a security. It's a home. The advantage of it is that you can buy it right away. It takes minutes to actually have your ownership over the property. It's more liquid, so you can sell it also within an hour, within a day. You just set it in the auction of the Propy NFT marketplace. These are the main two advantages: liquidity and the speed of the transaction. And it's inevitable. I often actually say the story about Netflix. When Netflix started, do you remember, Anthony? It was not really streaming online, right?
No, it was selling discs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it was selling discs. It's online, but it's selling discs, and you still wait for this offline thing. And only last year, actually, they abandoned this business. So they were doing business in parallel. One is streaming online that was growing, as well as the CDs sold online. So for us, those NFTs, the tokenized property selling on chain, is the streaming of ownership on chain. And it will happen. It's inevitable, but it's not scaled just yet. And thus we sell those online CDs, which is we're doing traditional title.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Once the property is tokenized, is it possible, like NFTs and other blockchain transactions, to fractionalize with multiple buyers getting in on the purchase? That's Amy.
Yeah, Amy, that's a great question. And yes, we can then further shard NFT, but then we have to file it with SEC because these would be securities, and that is a little bit lengthy in the process, about up to 4 months, and it's quite expensive to file with SEC and make it transparent. It's like mini IPO. So for a small house, for a smaller property, it's probably not feasible, but technically it's doable, and I think that's where the world is moving to.
Okay, let's go to another question. Once a property has been tokenized and bought, does the new owner have to go through Propy when they resell? So I think we've answered that a little bit, right? Like an NFT. We more or less answer that, right? You don't have to do that. You can go into the traditional realm, right?
Yeah, it's actually a great question because I believe that in the future, Coinbase, OpenSea, and the existing NFT marketplaces and exchanges will allow you to sell those real estate NFTs. Right now, it's not possible because you have the NFT, it represents home ownership, but OpenSea does not require KYC and AML. And in order to be compliant with real estate laws, not securities, because we're not talking about securities, but real estate, you have to pass KYC and AML. So for now, it's a Propy marketplace of NFTs, of home ownership. But in the future, as other marketplaces and even Coinbase will start accepting these requirements for NFT transfers, you can imagine that you could start selling those Propy NFT home ownerships on all those exchanges and again get this great level of liquidity.
Let's go to the next one. How do Propy loans work, and how does the interest rate and financial requirements compare to a traditional mortgage? This is Javier.
Yeah. So the Propy loan, just again, we accept Bitcoin, XRP, or Ethereum as a collateral to acquire a property. And recently, the last transaction was with Bitcoin. It was a 2-year loan, 10% interest rate, and there are monthly payments. So it works in the way of a mortgage, but it was for an investment property. And we are looking forward to expand the period of the loan to 30 days. And the main advantage is that there is no lengthy 30 days of mortgage approval process, which is a great problem right now for many Bitcoin holders or crypto holders because their income and their asset statements are not accepted if it's constructed primarily by crypto.
Well, I mean, I think you gave a brilliant exposition of what Propy is, and I'm gonna, in my lifetime, Natalia, I'm gonna buy a piece of property using your wonderful technology. So you're gonna help me do that?
Absolutely. Just keep your Bitcoin, get the loans on Propy, and get more properties here in Miami, New York. Yeah, we're looking forward for you to become Propy NFT holder. So yes, of course.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you joining us on the Wealthy On Network today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony.